Hey guys, Chris here. So I want to do a video today to talk about what is really stopping you from stepping into your true masculine power. Deep below the surface, self-esteem issues. If you find yourself needing guidance, needing other men to tell you what you can and can't do, you don't fully feel like you can trust yourself. You trust yourself in your own decisions and express your own opinions. We really want to find out what's going on beneath the surface there. And this does lead on from the last couple of videos. I talked about PUA and how it doesn't resolve the underlying self-esteem issues. And also I talked about enmeshment. Being enmeshed with a parent, how stops your boundaries. You want to be pleasing your parent. You don't quite, you're always looking, for example, if you're enmeshed with your mum, you're not really able to just focus on yourself. You feel like you always need another woman. You attract a codependent relationship. And what I'm here to tell you is that it is possible to be fully just in line with life, flowing with your purpose, and all these things can effortlessly flow to you. But it's a lot of work, like I told you about. I've done close to nearly a couple of years of therapy now, and I want to share with you what I was told when I first met with my psychotherapist, who I still continue to work with. Very, very intuitive, is a shaman, so very much in touch with spirit and energies and this sort of thing. It's been very much a big part of my journey. And when I first met her, she did already feel that I was somehow connected to the PUA industry without even talking to me, just from the way I was, just from my mind. And she was there to tell me as well that in a way, I've never really cut out the sort of, I've never really been able to fully trust myself. And in doing that, having ties to, say, the PUA industry, PUA world, you are still looking at certain guys as role models or idols, and it's not really on a deeper level who you want to be. For example, for me, I want to be a really true, authentic person. I'm very kind, very caring, but there's all that nice element, but that can also be integrated into someone who can be, can be a good person. You can be very focused, you can be very assertive. You don't have to be this kind of bad boy to not just to attract women, but to get what you want in life. And that's what I found I've integrated my life into more now. But when first working with my therapist, she did make me aware of, this wasn't to do with the sort of PUA industry, but I was part of another community, and the so-called leader of that was certain behaviors, certain things he was doing, I didn't agree with, and I judged it. And what I was doing is I still had that person as a male role model for myself. I was getting guidance from. And what this does is, she was basically saying, for example, if your parent is, as a masculine, it could be a father, can be quite passive, you then look for other male role models. And, if you feel that based on the planet, it's probably more toxic masculinity, a lot of greed, a lot of, people not, maybe you see guys who don't treat women well and all of this, then, you think that's what a guy is, right? And then you probably in school, these are sort of formed early on, and for me, there's a lot of frustration, perhaps just seeing the guys who bullied me get with the women, going to university, and guys would be sleeping with so many women and you just wouldn't be. So it was, and you would just be nice, but there was a lot of other stuff unresolved there. And what my therapist also told me not too long ago, maybe like about 9 months ago now, but when she first met me, she said she didn't really trust me because because of the ties to sort of PUA world. Obviously this is just her opinion. And it can probably be debatable, but she sees it as a form of, mental abuse, in terms, and I've seen that as well. I've seen guys who have literally used techniques and stuff to attract women, and it felt very unethical. It felt very disturbing. But the overall point with this as well is that you're actually in your mind. You're trying to figure things out. You're trying to figure out what you can and can't say. If a girl says something, you're saying, what can I say back? How can I make the situation better? Sometimes it doesn't ignore the fact that people have true feelings and it's how they are. So when you come more into your body and your feelings, and you're more authentic, and you're more in your being, you don't really think about a lot of these things. But I do understand with the sort of first video I did, that as a guy who's really nervous and you get into this stuff, you don't know what to do. We ascribe certain male role models of how the masculine should be. And what we're actually doing is then copying how these guys are, and we're doing it. But we're scared to go out and be like that because we know it's not what we really want. Like I mentioned, I think when I got into the PUA, there was a point where I'd become quite fake. I'd suppressed a lot of my feelings. You know, I'd attracted women, but ultimately probably attracted the wrong women, and I wasn't really being myself. So you're probably being loved for someone who isn't you. And this is the thing, is we all want love. We all want to be our unique self, you know, and if there's a lot of shame there, you've formed like a fake ego per se of how you should be. That's not really you. So you want to get to the point where you can be you, and you want to let everything out as well. So this comes to the thing of we have a shadow, and we want to be able to integrate the shadow. So deeper in the shadow, there could be a lot of hatred towards women, you know, and this is what my therapist felt, you know, a lot of misogyny, you know, and then I would see other guys and I would blame them. I would say, you know, they're being misogynistic, they hate women, blah, blah, blah. But once I actually acknowledged that, and that's as we talked about in the last video with enmeshment, because you've probably spent a lot of your life, maybe as a guy with his mother, in a lot of frustration of being overpowered, being told what to do, being controlled, that you want to, you know, there's a lot of anger there, right? So it needs to be let out, and it needs to be felt, and it needs to be expressed, right? And then obviously you bring in boundaries and all these sort of things, but you do allow yourself to feel the anger. So that's my main take on why guys are so nice, is they're ignoring their shadow, they're suppressing their anger. But when the anger all starts to come to the surface, what is actually interesting is you start to then have compassion for maybe even the guys, like, so I mentioned, like with PUA, there was one point where I hated some guys, but now I don't hate any of them because I've kind of felt all those feelings. Things like with money as well, which I'm still working on. Maybe I see certain billionaires and certain greedy people, I can judge them. But if I get to the point where I've probably got quite a flow of money, I probably wouldn't judge them as much. You know, it's interesting. That's something I learned recently. People who have a lot of money don't go around saying, oh, this billionaire's doing this and that. They're just getting on with it, right? But the people who stay back with no money, so the judgments get in the way of the true flow. But in terms of, I talked about the anger, the hatred, maybe towards women, you know, that's no fault of your own. And you know, I think all feelings are sacred, you know, and then sometimes there's been debates like with feminism and stuff like that, which I've got involved in. You can't help what your true feelings are, and I think if we work together consciously, we can resolve, you know, much bigger issues. I was lucky that, you know, my therapist is a woman as well, and then that sort of created that. And at times there were things, and if anything, she's grown a lot. She's allowed herself to trust men more. I think she could see the growth that I've been through, and this ability to go, because what she found, particularly like I mentioned with the enmeshment, is there was just this ability to not go there, in terms of your family's perfect, life's perfect, you know, PUA's worked, it's sacred. So this is why it's very hard to cut all these ties, but there has to be like a cut, an energetic cut in spiritual sense. But also you can do things physically. You could still be in touch with certain people, and you have to be like, no, I'm completely disconnected now. I'm writing down, look, I'm so grateful for everything, you know, but I'm letting this part of my life go, and it's to let it back. And this is the problem I think with some guys I've met, have found, is that they will keep dabbling back into it. You know, they get frustrated with women again. They've said, oh, PUA doesn't work or whatever, then they go back to it again. You know, and then sometimes it's about letting out and then bringing in something new, you know, and it depends on where you're at this journey. I think for some people, it is getting to a point where you are really like, okay, I really want to go a lot deeper and I want to resolve it. Like for me, enmeshment is the solution. You know, it literally changes everything. But also, like I mentioned, with the masculine side as well, you know, you want to really be able to be like, look, I want to step into my own masculine power, and to really find guys who you really are drawn to, and you really look at them and you're like, yes, this is who I want to be like. And I think if you look through your life, I look for, you know, maybe through self-development and things like that, there were certain motivational coaches and stuff that I looked up to, And they changed throughout. But then I found gradually I met more and more authentic, honest people, and I was like, this is the guy I want to be. And then eventually you then trust yourself. But to constantly being aware as well, to constantly be going to other guys, other people maybe you look up to, and to constantly be asking them for advice. You want ideally to meet someone like that. Like I found a great masculine role model who just constantly kept telling me, you know, believe in yourself, you know, trust yourself, you got this, you know. I think it's awesome what you're doing. And then there were the older sort of role models who'd be like, yeah, this is what you got to do. You got to, it's very forceful. It's very like controlling. But we're drawn to that. You know, we're drawn to people who have certainty. So, you know, in order to be like, okay, they've got the answers, right? This will definitely work. But the truth is there's a lot of, you've got to be okay with uncertainty. We don't know what's going to work. And also there were certain guys I would look up to and I'd be like, this guy's in his power. He's so confident. He's this and that. And my therapist was like, well, he's not in his power, you know, he's not in his true power. Yeah, there's a lot of masculine energy, which you're obviously drawn into and you want to step into. But it's not authentic. It's a lot of force, controlling, you know, manipulative, you know, inauthentic, a lot of ego, you know, needing a lot of validation. The thing is, the more validation you need is because you feel quite empty inside. And like I mentioned with PUA, is it creates this fake persona of, because there's a lot of shame deep down. But as I mentioned before in this video as well, you want to be loved for being you. So imagine if you just fully step in and own that. It's very difficult, I know. But one thing you can do straight away is just be aware of the judgments. Be aware of the judgments in other men. If you're scrolling through Facebook, I used to be judging all guys who were out there talking, you know. Now I don't really do that. I'm kind of more focused just on myself. So beware of other judgments, beware of guys who are good with women, or you see this lovely girl and this guy goes up to her and he's smooth talking to her. Be aware of what you're saying in yourself, like, oh, you know, he's just showing off or this or that. All of these things, they do stop you. So be aware of the internal chatter. And look to move past it. And also look to move out of this victim mentality. Like I think even with the need for me, when I was talking to my therapist, this need to really defend the PUA industry and saying, well, we've not got another choice. This is the only way we can do it. This is, you know, if we're guys who, you know, it's about taking responsibility. And she was saying, take responsibility in terms of focus on healing, you know, the deeper wounds, you know, the mother wounds, you know, the PUA sort of guys, for me, in my opinion, and what I can see is just there's massive mother wounds which are being pushed away, and it's coming out and it's being like this, and it's this refusal to look into the deeper underlying issues. And I say this, you know, from a place of, you know, if you're willing to go there, and it's about being courageous, and it is about taking responsibility. You know, like I talked about in the last videos as well, like, you know, maybe blaming feminism and blaming all of these things. Of course, they can create conflict and things like that, but they ultimately do not stop you from stepping into your true masculine power. Many people have done that over time. And sometimes it's understanding that the things stop you. You know, I've even found that recently with the whole COVID thing, to literally be like, we're being locked in our houses, we're doing this, we can't do this, we can't do that. You know, there's never anything that can stop you. It's about being okay with uncertainty, being adaptable and taking responsibility and saying like, okay, this is the situation, let's do it. And many masculine guys, great leaders have been like that. They've straight away seen there's a problem. Okay, what can we do about this? And for me, is if you're still on this journey of self-discovery and you're going deeper, you know, be willing to go deeper into this. You know, what is stopping you from really being like, I am my own man, I trust myself, I'm a leader, rather than sort of holding back and looking at other guys and saying like, they're the bomb, you know, they're the stuff, you know, that's damaging your self-esteem. I even remember there was a time where, you know, there'd be a girl that I like, for example, and there'd be one of my friends who'd be good looking or he'd be a great guy, and I would introduce him to the girl and I would big him up and I'd be like, what am I doing to myself? You know, I'm literally, you know, not going after what I want, and I'm letting someone else take the lead. And that's normally that, you know, you're a nice guy, you put to the side, this guy's maybe a bit of a bad boy, he deserves to, you know, to get the girl that you want, right? And that's damaging for your self-esteem. You know, these kind of patterns, you know, I look back now It's about what you want and putting yourself first. So I hope that helps, guys. As I think even on the first video I did, last couple of videos, there's probably a bit of shame of me just sharing this stuff, maybe being quite open, also being quite limited of what I can say. I don't want to go too much into my personal life and talking about family and stuff like that. So, and maybe even an element of feeling a bit of, betrayal, or, talking about sort of PUA, because it felt like a very sacred industry of like a community of, if you publicly talk bad about it, you're an outcast, you're shamed. So it's very challenging to do these kind of videos. But I would say that, there should be no shame ultimately. You grow a lot, you let a lot of stuff out once it's out in the public, whether people agree with it or they don't agree with it. I think being part of men's groups and talking about that sort of stuff, there isn't as much shame around that. But with the whole PUA thing, obviously I don't want to keep talking about this, probably the final time I'll mention it, is there was always shame. There was always shame to talk about it. You couldn't talk about it. To be honest, I would be scared to share that first video on my Facebook, right? Even as confident and as I feel like I would attract a lot of, obviously conflict, so which is something good to grow, but it just gives you an idea of the level of shame of people who talked about this. I remember one of my friends used to always whisper, when he'd be talking about PUA stuff, like it was something to be very shameful about. Whereas if you go to a men's group and you're just, that feels a lot more authentic and honest. And like I said, I think a lot of these problems can be resolved deep down. As you resolve them, you don't worry about what to say, you don't have anxiety, you don't feel like you always need a woman around you. You're more in your power, and that's the secret. So, this video, to me was a massive solution. Definitely over the last couple of years, I'm still working on it. But I hope you guys have found this useful. Just to mention as well, I do offer a free consultation for 30 minutes. If you guys just want to chat about any of this, like we talked about enmeshment, maybe you can relate to some of the PUA stuff, what's stopping you stepping into your masculine power. So yeah, that's something I offer. So do check the link below and contact me, and we can arrange that. So yeah, guys, I hope you did enjoy this video, and do comment below what your thoughts are. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you soon.